So looking at the first problem, because we have four things, you were supposed to do the grouping. So the first two things, what do they have in common?
5x squared.
5x squared. And I simplify that, this becomes x plus 3. These two, what do they have in common? 8. And we have still an x plus 3. Now remember, as long as these two are the same, then you did this correctly. We're going to put 5x squared plus 8 and x plus 3. Please double check that you cannot simplify those anymore. That's a 5 and an 8. No, we can't. X plus 3, tampoco. So that's it. We're done.
You're done.
Questions there? And if you do, you're more than welcome to ask questions. It doesn't matter if it's being recorded. Like, ask. We're good? Next problem. They give you your three functions again. This is a -6. Does -6 fall into the first, second, or third? The first one. So I have f of x equals 4x plus 2. And I have to do f of -6, which means 4 times a -6 plus 2. 4 times a -6 is a -24 plus 2, which equals a -22. So this is worth 10 points. This is worth 10 points. So up to right now, we got 20 points on the test if you got those correct. Are we good? Yes? Problem number 3. -14 minus the square root of a -1, square root of 4, square root of 3, divided by 2. Now remember, the -12, we have to break it down into something we could take the square root of. Square root of 4 is?
2.
Dose.
Because of that negative, this is an I. This here is an I. We covered it. There it is. Square root of 3 divided by 2. We consider this two different fractions because we're talking about two different terms. -14 divided by 2 is a?
-7.
What happens to these two?
Cancel out.
So this is my final answer. Now remember, you're getting work, you're getting a grade for what you get. This is not multiple choice, so it's not like, oh, this is it. We're gonna come back and do the right side at the very end. Flipping it over to number 5. I know right away you guys were doing 40 times 192, and that's a huge number. But when we look at 40, 344, and 192, you should be able to simplify something first. 8x. So we divide everything by 8x, and I get 5x squared minus
3x.
Oh, you can braided 8?
Oh, I forgot we haven't done that part yet.
43x plus 24. So everything is divisible by 8. The same thing's going to happen in your test. You first have to do that. For right now, we're going to forget about that 8 and just look at that. So the rule says we take the 5 and we multiply times the last one. And when we do that, I get a 120 and a -43. Are we good with that?
Yes.
So I know it is 2 times 60, 3 times 40, 4 times 30, and I already found the one that gives me a 43. Who is it?
30 and 40.
But they both have to be negatives because this guy is a -43. Agree? So the 8x stays. The first one comes down. These are going to be my two middle terms. So -3x minus 40x. The last one has to come down. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Yes? Now, because we have four things, we have to do what?
Grouping.
The grouping. So we're going to group these two together. These two together because of that negative. Don't forget to put the plus sign right there. What do 5x squared and -3x have in common?
X.
So the 8x stays. I could factor out an x there. And this becomes 5x minus 3. Both of these are divisible by 8. But what kind of 8? -8, right? So this is also a 5x minus 3. Are these the same?
Yes.
Yay. So 5x minus 3 and x minus 8. Could any of these be reduced anymore?
No.
This is my final answer. Do not forget to keep bringing that 8x down. Are there any questions?
No.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Yes? Awesome. Now, this next problem, is like the first one that we did in the other review. So they're asking us to graph this one, graph the inverse, find a domain and range of both, and find the equation of the inverse. So we did all that in the other one. So remember, you always start off by making a table of your f of x, which is what they give you. But they tell you to start off with what number? The 2. So I'm going to use 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'll stop there. So 2 minus 2,
0,
0 squared.
0,
3 minus 2,
1,
1 squared.
1,
4 minus 2,
2,
2
4,
squared.
4.
5 minus 2,
Ah,
3 squared is. So we're going to sketch this one first. 2, 0, 3, 1, 4, 4, and 5, 9. So you're going to get points for scoring that one. The whole, graphing it. So the whole thing is worth 18. This is probably going to be worth 3. But now I have to sketch who?
The inverse.
The inverse. And please remember, that's what this little -1 up there means. And I think it should be up in the front, right there. So in order to do the inverse, what's the only thing I have to do? Switch those. So this becomes 0, 2, 1, 3, 4, 4, and 9, 5. And I'm going to graph that one in red. 0, 2, 1, 3,
So in
4,
any
4,
situation, you're just switching the numbers.
and 9, 5. Yes.
There you go.
Right there. So you're going to get points for graphing that. Now we have to find a domain and range for both. The domain of f of x, which was this one, the one in black, it starts off where x is what?
2,
2.
2,
So this is 2 to infinity.
So is it always going to start off with a parenthesis, with a bracket and end with a parenthesis?
Because there is a point here. Because of the equal sign, so that's why it has to be a bracket. And infinity always has parentheses. So my domain, what's the lowest point? Where y is what? What is y?
0.
0 to infinity. Now in the previous review, and you could tell here, these are going to switch. So my domain for this one starts off when x is what? 0. So this becomes 0, infinity. And my range starts when y is what?
2.
2. So please notice that my range becomes my domain becomes my range.
And then inverse, is it always going to be the exact opposite?
The inverse, you have to work it out. Because I don't know what you mean by exact opposite. So in the video of 2.7, we have to find the inverse equation. And the inverse, if you were talking about domain and range, the opposite, then yes. But we still need to find this part.
Okay.
So remember, the first thing for inverse, you switch your
X and Y.
x and y. We cannot rescue the y or leave the y alone until we get rid of.
The 2 squared.
And the only way we get rid of that is by doing the square root on both sides. Square root of x equals y minus 2.
Plus 2, both sides.
We need to add the 2 inside or outside of the square root.
Outside.
So square root of x plus 2. You could write it like this, but they're going to want you to put it up there. Square root of x plus 2. Square root of x plus 2. So this is worth 14 points. Having to do this, putting it there, make sure you put your domain and range, and make sure you graph them. So the whole thing is worth 14 points.
So the inverse is that.
Yes,
Okay.
this is the inverse. Whoop, right there. So over the weekend, this video is going to be, I'm going to send it to everybody so you guys could see it again if you want to hear the explanation again. Okay? If it helps. Number 7, they're asking us to find f of g. So f of g of x, and then don't forget we have to find the domain. So we first do f of, who's my g?
There you go, X plus 4.
Alright, and we have to plug this into here. So this needs to be plugged in into that one and that one. Do we agree?
Yes.
Alright. So we have 8 over x plus 4 over 8 over x plus 4 plus 8. What is wrong with that 8? It should be over what? A 1. So now when I look at those two, do I have the same denominator? No. I have to multiply this by x plus 4 and x plus 4. When I do that, this stays the same. the first one stays the same, but the second one now becomes 8 times x, which is? What? And 8 times 4, which is?
Okay,
Over
wait.
x plus 4.
So where does the x plus 4 come from?
I'm trying to get the same denominator. What is my denominator here?
It's 4.
So I need to make this one an x plus 4. How do I do it? By multiplying it by x plus 4. If it was an x plus 3, you would multiply top and bottom by x plus 3. So can I do anything with the top? No. So that one stays the same. But the bottom, I need to look at this and simplify because now I have the same denominator. I have an 8x here. Do I have an x anywhere else on top? So the 8x we're going to put first, but I have an 8 plus 32
40.
plus 40 over x plus 4. Questions right now? So we combine what we can. So I'm going to rewrite it the vertical way. The horizontal way. And this is what I have. So the top divided by the bottom. But we learned that division becomes of the reciprocal. So this becomes x plus 4 over 8x plus 40. Now when I see this, you should be able to eliminate something right away, which is what? The x plus 4 here and the x plus 4 there. And I end up with this. But please look at this and ask yourself, can I simplify this a little bit more?
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you stop there, you're not going to get full credit. Both 8x and 40 are divisible by 8. So I could factor out an 8. So when I factor out an 8 from 8x, what do I have left over?
1 over x plus 5.
X plus 5. So 8 times x is 8x. X times 5 is 40. I have both an 8 on top and bottom. So guess what?
Of course not.
So I end up with a 1 on top and x plus 5 in the bottom. This is my final answer for this part. It's a lot of work. Now you could go home, cover up your answer, rework it out, and see if it matches. Because it's going to be the same similar steps when you're doing this. Now you need to graph this, so can I borrow a calculator?
So we're going to need a calculator for the domain part, right?
You're going to need a calculator for the domain part, exactly. So when I graph this, I have 1 divided by x plus 5. And when I look at this, sorry, just kidding. 1, x plus 5. So when I look at this, there it is. Where does this graph split? So I should know my answer is going to look like this because I have 2 parts, my domain. So you go to your table and you're looking for that undefined, and my undefined is at a negative 5. So it starts from negative infinity, comma negative 5 to a positive infinity.
So you actually plug in 1 over x plus 5?
You need to graph it, yes. So once you do that, that's what we get right there. Looks a little up. Questions? Are we okay?
Yes.
Yes? Awesome. The last question is worth 10 points. Simple. Y equals 1. I'm hoping you were able to draw a line right there. Are we good?
Yes.
So now with the part that I'm kind of worried about, a little bit, not that much because it's not that bad. Let's look at this problem because it looks a little bit different. So we have covered, when we see things like this, we know what happens. Now, what does that plus 1 tell you? Where does it move? What kind of transformation is happening? We have an up 1. What does that minus 2 inside tell you?
To the right.
Right? 2?
Oh, we have to have those memorized, don't we?
You should know it. Now, the only thing that's different here from what we've done, we've covered a negative in front, and we said that was a reflection over the x. But for this problem, there's a negative in front of the x. This negative here refers to a reflection over the y. So this is where it's different from what we've done before. So I need for you to put reflection over y. Write this down because I'm about to start working this out. And some of you are like, woohoo, daydreaming. And I have 7 minutes to do this. So please remember, it's going to be the same thing on your test. Reflection over the y because of this negative. 2 to the right and up 1, but they're going to give you different points. So we're going to start with the first point. If I were to reflect this point over the y, where is it going to be at?
-3, -1.
3, -1. It's going to be right here at 3, -1. Do you agree?
Yes.
But then, after I reflect it, I still need to move it where?
Up 1.
Up 2. To the right 2.
To the right 2. So I'm going to move to the right 2. So now where am I?
1, -1.
-1. But then I still need to move it where?
Up 1.
Up 1. So where do I end up at?
0.
1, 0. So then,
Did you move it to the left?
Yeah.
again, I did the wrong thing. Sorry, just kidding. So here we go. I moved it to the left instead of to the right. I have a problem. So we reflected. I am at 3, -1. I did the same. I did the same thing yesterday. I'm sorry. So we're at 3, -1, right? Then it says 2 to the right. So I'm at 5, -1. And then I have to move up 1. So I'm at what? 5, 0. So on your graph here, you plot your point at 5, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Move this up. 5, 0. There it is. Are we okay with that? All right. So sorry, but now I'm going to be moving to the right. Next point. -1, 4. So we reflected over the y, and it comes to 1, 4. Yes? Then I have to move it still 2 more to the right. So now I'm where? 3, 4. And then I have to move it where? Up 1. So I'm where? 3, 5. Because it only moves up 1. So it becomes a 3, 5. So I go here, 3, 5, which is there. Connect it, please. There it is. Now, the graph in the bottom is going to look skinnier because this one goes all the way to 10 and this one just goes to 5 and 5. So don't freak out that it's not looking the same. This point, we're reflected over the y, so now it's where? -1, 1. I have to move it 2 to the right, so I happen to be right back at 1, 1. But then I still have to move where? Up 1, so where is it now? 1, 2. So this point will be at 1, 2, which is right there. Next point is 2, 3. So when I reflect 2, 3, it becomes what? -2, 3. I move 2 to the right, so I'm 0, 3. But then I still have to move up 1, and it becomes 0, 4. Very good. So it's not that bad. You just need to do one at a time. 4, 3, reflected becomes a -4, 3. 2 to the right, -2, 3. Up 1, -2, 4. Awesome. -2, 4. And you are done. So 1 by 1, but this helps for you to write down the steps and actually do them. So this whole question is worth 12 points. You have to do this. It's not that bad. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So if you transfer each point correctly, it's 2 points apiece. But this is the last part, and it's an easy 6 points. But you have to say this correctly in complete sentences. So the correct way to say this is f of x is reflected where? Over who? Reflected over the y-axis. Then it is shifted which way? Now, is the 2 to the right a horizontal or vertical shift? So we're going to use the word, and you need to use the word horizontally, and I already misspelled, that A's not there. Horizontally, 2 units to the right. If you don't use horizontally and vertically, we're going to take off a couple of points. So if you want 100% of this, the 6 points, we need to make sure we use the word horizontally. And shift it where?
Vertically.
Vertically. Thank you.
Up 1 unit.
1 unit up. So that's you writing in beautiful, complete sentences. I want to see the word horizontally and vertically. So this is what your test is going to look like on
Monday, Tuesday.
Tuesday.